The problem of the fundamental value of the stock is that we will not know really how much the economy is contracting. And I'm going back to the first point, how long it's going to last. I think, Ukraine, as a matter of fact, is a fragile economy. It cannot go on its own to this crisis without big damages. Comparing with trillions of dollars which are being considered and implemented in the US, in Europe, in China, Ukraine needs a relatively small amount of money to carry on. Crisis prolonged for several years is discriminating who can carry on and who is left on his own. So socially is also it's a dangerous situation because it's also extremizing the inequality in the world. You have a lot of people which, unfortunately, as a matter of fact, they work in the black economy, not salaries. How do you help people unless you spread money with a helicopter, which is not going to happen?
Hello, everyone. This is Mikola Timощuk. I am CEO of YouFuture, investment and holding company. And once again, it is my honor and pleasure to be an interviewer at our special format called Insights of Kyiv International Economic Forum, in which we are conducting a number of interviews with the distinguished speakers of the Kyiv International Economic Forum. And it is very interesting and new job for me, but I've gladly taken it, given that we are all on a temporary lockdown, all of us around the world, who still need to talk each other, need to see each other, and actually more than ever need to hear insights from remarkable people. And today is the day when we have such interview with an outstanding personality, the managing director of Rothschild for CIS, and an investment professional with more than 20-year experience in investment industry, Mr. Giovanni Sальветті. Am I pronouncing correctly, Giovanni?
That's okay. That's absolutely fine. Thank you very much.
Sальветті.
Thank you, Nikolai.
Giovanni,
yes.
Thanks for sparing your time and for finding opportunity to talk to us. As far as I'm concerned, you are in Kyiv now, right?
Yes, indeed. Yes, I found myself in Kyiv since a couple of weeks already.
Did it just happen like this because of the lockdown?
Well, it happened like this, actually. I'm stranded in Kyiv, which actually I don't complain at all. It's it's a nice place. There are much worse places where to be stranded.
Oh, yeah.
I was here for some business. I'm coming to Kyiv fairly often, at least every 10 days. I was here for some business, and the day before I was supposed to fly back to Moscow. Then the Russian Federation, they canceled, they banned the Italian citizens, even if I have work permit and whatever, to enter the Russian Federation because of the coronavirus. Yeah. And at the same time, I couldn't go to Italy because Italy, you see what's going on, and it's all locked down. So I'm stranded in Kyiv, doing some business out from here, and even sometimes meeting people with masks and gloves and everything. It's a bit
nice.
Strange, but that's life. Yes.
Well, I'm happy to hear you're still doing business. You still have business, Giovanni. Though we
do.
Supposedly all know what investment banking is, and of course, Rothschild is a household name in the world. Everybody knows this name. Could you briefly tell us about what your organization does in your specific role in that organization? Very briefly, so that everybody understands.
No, sure. No, Rothschild is an organization which has already 250 years old. Is the oldest investment bank in the world. We are a pure advisor, so we advise on complex situations, normally significant M&A transactions, so companies buying or selling. We advise a lot governments. We have been advising all governments in the world from the Duke of Wellington and Napoleon, and from that time onwards, and continuously until upon today, we have been advising governments all over the world including we are advising the Minister of Finance of Ukraine. We are very proud of that. And in these times, I would say that the bulk of the business is about debt restructuring, which is something that we do now. We advise our clients, being creditors or borrowers, in the restructure of their debt, because in this situation of the market, you will have a lot of companies which unfortunately cannot repay their debt, and complex discussion have to be organized and put in place in order to adjust the debt profile of the companies to the new realities. And that is happening as we speak with many companies in CIS and all over the world. I myself, I've been working for this company for 18 years, and I'm in charge of Russia and CIS since a few years. And so my main market is Ukraine, Russia, Kazakhstan, and I live among these countries. Я говорю по-русски тоже, но я не очень свободен так по-английски, но тогда, может быть, лучше на английский.
Giovanni, отличный rusский.
Yeah.
Anche parlo italiano, ma un po'.
Ah, sì, lo so che parli italiano.
Sì. Giovanni, okay, let's switch to English so that everybody understands us. I'm happy to hear that you guys, and you particularly, specialize in complex situations, because I think this is exactly where we find ourselves today. I mean, the entire world and Ukraine and us, everybody who works in the investment industry. I must ask this question, even though it's beat up and being discussed all over the place these days. How do you assess the current global situation? What is your evaluation of what's going on, and particularly in the economy?
Well, evidently the global situation of the economy is very bad. There are no doubts. If we talk about geographies and numbers, this year, the International Monetary Fund was expecting a growth of 3.4% already in January. The growth of which the consensus of international organization is today that instead of 3.4, I'm looking at the data, it's going to be -1.5 globally, so which is a combination. It's a combination. It's clearly a recession. Recession defined as two terms, two quarters of negative growth. That's for sure is going to be the case this year. 1.5% is globally. That means a combination of -3.2% in advanced economies, -3.6% in the United States, Euro even -5%. China, instead of 6%, is going to be +1%. And emerging markets, is very patchy situation. I personally believe that these data are even optimistic, because I think that probably the results in the end of the day will be worse. It's simple as, make some simple consideration. If an economy is decreasing by 50% in 1 month, and then the second 2 months by -25%, so -50, -25, -25, the end result of a year is -10. And I'm afraid that the contraction of the economy is going to be worse than what the consensus is saying at the moment. So I think the situation is pretty dark from an economic point of view.
Giovanni, let's gauge it in comparisons. Is it going to be as bad as in 2008, worse, better?
The comparison is very different. The reality is that we don't know. We don't know because we don't know, especially the one being unknown is that what's going to happen after September. We don't know if this virus will continue. We don't know. There is a scenario L, V, W, or whatever, all these scenarios, which probably you already heard, is kind of boring to go through. But the reality is that it could be worse, could be much worse, or it could actually resolve pretty quickly. if actually in September we see that most of the countries are out and there is no a recession, there is not a restart of the epidemic with the fall, then I think and the social amortization are strong enough to maintain employment or at least providing cash to marginalized part of the society will work, then it could be better. If on the contrary, or less lasting. If on the contrary, then the situation will continue and maybe there is another dip of contagious activities in October, then I think it might be considerably worse. What definitely is worse is the number of jobless people, which is very concerning me because you see the data in the United States, which are totally unprecedented, even absolutely much worse than during 2007, 2008, 2009. The contraction of jobs in the United States was the highest one was 500, 400,000 people, job claims weekly. And here we are already, after 2 weeks of US being hit, we are at 6 million, which is totally unprecedented. It's totally unprecedented. It never happened before in the history of modern economy that had been a complete block globally of the world economy. So making comparisons is very difficult. What is concerning me is people which have lost and losing their job, how fast they can come back to their to being active, and if they will come back to be active. Because when there are these type of shocks, companies also get restructured, and it's not so obvious that all people who lost their job will get back to work. And this is very concerning from an economic, but also from a social point of view.
No, that's clear. That's clear and fair, and objectively, it is so. Now, what does the stock market tell you? Has it fallen to the bottom already? Do you expect further dives?
That's a question that nobody can answer. I expect that there will be a lot of volatility in the next at least 2-3 weeks. I'm very much concerned about the situation in the United States, where which is the center, it's a global economy and is effectively driving the rest of the stock market globally. So we have been told that in US there will be 200, 300,000 people dying in the next few weeks. That means 10,000 people a day, which is a very big number. I think that even though probably in 3 weeks nothing terrible will happen to businesses, I think it's very difficult to split the human effect, psychological human effect of such a bad, I don't want to say catastrophic, but such a bad situation from the investment. I think people will get very bad in terms of mood, in terms of approach, and probably there will be additional sale. I think anyway that this is going to be, let me say, emotional reaction to fundamental value, so not necessarily reflecting the fundamental value. The problem of the fundamental value of the stock is that we will not know really how much the economy is contracting, and I'm going back to the first point, how long it's going to last. If it's in September we are all good, then I think that it's better not to sell in a way, and it's better to build position. But we don't know what type of economy we'll have in September going forward.
Yeah, uncertainty is the biggest risk factor here, that's for sure. Giovanni, now you said that you are honored to be advising to our Ministry of Finance. Now, where does Ukraine stand in all this situation according to your assessment? What should we be doing? What are we doing right or wrong? How well we are prepared in your assessment, and how bad is it going to hit us? Of course, it's all subjective. It's all due on the data available today. I'm not asking you to make any precise forecast, just your personal professional opinion in this matter.
Well, look, I'm afraid, Nicolas, that I'm not going to give any I cannot make any statement because I don't want to speak on behalf of our client.
Okay.
The only thing which we are, technicians, we are helping on external debt, but the decision and the statements and everything are entirely with our client. We are just helping, humble advisors. So I can't speak on their behalf, but the only thing which is clear is, and it's not I'm saying this, but from the president and every senior officer in Ukraine are saying that, that the IMF package is critical for stabilization of the economy in Ukraine, and absent the IMF package, the consequences are known to everyone. So I think, Ukraine, as a matter of fact, is a fragile economy. It cannot go on its own to this crisis without big damages. I mean, of course it can, but the damages will not be very big. So it needs to rely on the support of partners. The partner which is sitting at the table is the IMF with certain conditions, and I think that that's the way it's going to go. The good news is that Ukraine is a big country, a country I really like, but it's also a small economy. So comparing with trillions of dollars which are being considered and implemented in US, in Europe, in China, Ukraine needs a relatively small amount of money to carry on. Therefore, I'm confident that this money will be put available to the country and stabilize the economy.
Understood. Thank you, Giovanni. Well, in any case, we all know and hear all the time, as sometimes a psychological support exercise, that each crisis is an opportunity. According to your expert opinion, which sectors do you think will come out of this crisis reinforced with more opportunities, restructured, in a better shape, and which sectors will suffer the most and maybe even will have to be completely restructured? And the same, I would love to hear your opinion about the same in societies, in certain role in societies, certain strats of our societies. Which parts of those societies will again come out reinforced, better, with new opportunities after the crisis, and which will suffer the most?
Yeah. Well, in terms of, thank you for the question, Nicholas. It's a very interesting one. In terms of which type of sectors, I think it's pretty evident to everyone that this isolation, self-isolation, quarantine all over the world is providing enormous stimulus for online businesses, being it delivery of groceries, e-commerce, but also e-learning and e-entertainment, and people are watching a lot of movies these days. And I, as I understand, they are subscribing new abonnements to new services. I mean, this sector is quite booming. And what is very interesting in this sector is that, and it's not my opinion, this is a statistical evidence, is when people switch from traditional retail or traditional shopping to e-commerce, especially within the younger generation, the younger, even 40, 50, they don't go back to the old habits very easily. So you create a stock, by this crisis, you create a stock of new clients, which are going to be much more resilient in adopting behaviors of online shopping. So there'll be a new stock of clients. Conversely, evidently, you will have probably traditional retail suffering because of this switch from online, and also probably the big gatherings for a while are going to suffer. I mean, of course, I'm not talking about airlines and this thing, which is obvious, but also social behavior is going to change, not only for a few months, but probably for longer. I saw also that in China today, I saw recently a documentary, people in Nanking, which is not the center of the crisis, but Nanking are still going around with masks. They are distanciating themselves in restaurants, one guest every second table. So even restaurants are going to suffer for quite a lot of time. Socially, also, this crisis is is a bit discriminating, because I'm here. I'm kind of working, of course, not full time, but I can still do business. You can do business. Lawyers do business, and IT people still work. I mean, not full time, but they can still work. But if you are a driver, if you are a carpenter, if you are whatever, which a barman, a bartender, a officiant, a waitress, then you can't work. So this crisis prolonged for several years is discriminating who can carry on and who is left on his own. So socially is a dangerous situation, because it's also extremizing the inequality in the world. You see e-commerce businesses which are huge. They will become even bigger, for what I said before, and shareholders very rich. But people which lost their job are very difficult. It's very difficult for them to come back. So the path to inequality, which we have seen already in the last few years, is going to be exacerbated by this crisis, I'm afraid, unless governments will strongly and rapidly intervene.
But they are intervening. You see that they are promising trillions of helicopter money, specifically to those most vulnerable that live from paycheck to paycheck and usually do those basic jobs that you described that they cannot do on quarantine. Do you think it will help, specifically those disadvantaged ones?
Well, one thing is, there is always one thing is talking, one thing is do it. Of course they will do it. Of course they will use this money. But the problem is that, during the financial crisis of 2008, you could, increase monetary policy, improve monetary policy. I mean, more friendly monetary policies, cutting rates, providing liquidity to the banks, and also fiscal measures at central level, which are difficult to do, but not so difficult, because at the end of the day, it's about, signing contracts, sending liquidity from the Federal Reserve, and so on and so forth. Here, the more difficult thing is that you need to go to the last mile of the society to help them. And the infrastructure for doing that is very difficult, takes a lot of time, and is not going to be ready to go in practice as fast as they should in a matter of weeks. So, the intention, the measure are impressive. How this will be effective to the people who really need it in the end, I'm not sure, because it's a matter of practicality. It's very difficult to get to the last mile. And especially in countries like Ukraine, you have a lot of people which, unfortunately, as a matter of fact, they work in the black economy, not salaries. How do you help people unless you spread money with a helicopter, which is not going to happen? Yeah. You need to have some basis to give money. Okay, you had the salary, but very often salaries in small companies are 30% or 50% of the real salary, right? So it's a different thing to have. Yeah?
It's an interesting observation, because actually, as I'm reading the international press, in the EU and in the US, they are afraid of the same situation of hundreds of thousands of people actually working illegally, which means that effectively the government bodies, they see those people, they understand they are there, they know they are there, and they allow their businesses to hire those people, at least partially. But now they have no authority and no mechanisms of helping them, particularly in the United States. So, to me, it speaks of an interesting nuance of, like an elephant in the room, that even in the most developed, civilized, structured countries on earth, like European Union and North America, there is still significant portion of illegal workers, and everybody knows about it.
Yeah. No, that's a fact. Yes, in some countries more, in some countries less.
Yeah. And even given hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians that returned from Italy, from Spain, that shows the magnitude from Poland. Germany. That shows the magnitude of the work migration. But I want to reflect on something that you said in your first comment about the industries. Now, everybody's talking now that everything online and remote will boom and develop. And as you said, customers tend to not go back. While it may be true in e-commerce, I wonder whether that's true in everything online. For instance, I'm dying to go and eat out almost in any restaurant. I'm dying to go actually and walk through a shopping mall, just to spend time and look at the windows. So in my, maybe it's just my subjective experience, but I have an impression that there's going to be huge deferred demand for simple things that we're taking for granted all our lives. To go for an amusement park with kids on the weekend, to visit gym or swimming pool, to have a meal at a restaurant, to walk through a shopping mall just to spend time, to go to see the movie in the cinema, not just home at Netflix. Don't you think there's going to be a deferred demand, or do you think that people will just get by from now on with all online and remote and delivery, and they will not want to come back to regular physical consumption of things?
No, I think you're right fundamentally that everyone will want to. I also want to go to a restaurant as soon as possible, even though I can't complain because I'm cooking some carbonara, which is still not bad.
Not complain.
Yeah, I'm doing carbonara. No, I can survive, and there are good providers here in Kiev still working with, so I can't complain. But I also want, and everyone wants. But the thing is that when you get used to, I was really referring not to people now staying at home. They will not continue self-quarantine for years, like, the Japanese soldier after Second World War, which are for 30 years in the islands. It's not what I meant. I meant just that the stock of customers get used to e-commerce will just increase, and the increase there will decrease on the other side. However, I'm not, for sure you are a privileged individual. You work for an international organization, a big industrial group. Definitely, I don't know your personal situation, but I assume definitely much more well paid than the average Ukrainian. And you will go back and you will try to do all the things you say, but you should consider that the bulk of the society in this market, after 3 months of no work or reduced work, will be much more poor, and they will not have simply the means to do these things, even if they want. Of course, this will take some time, but so will not be, this rebound of services, even because people will be poorer. And don't forget that the privileged ones, well paid, are 2, 3, 4% of the society. But the big of a society is fundamentally poor, with an average salary of $500, $600 per month, which in these months will be probably close to half or zero in certain cases.
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. And actually, look, we also feel it. Everybody feels it. We're cutting costs. We're not laying off people for the time being, but we had to partially reduce salaries for the time of quarantine. We're definitely, as I said, cutting costs, not just immediately, but for this year, at least, to say. We're redesigning strategies and everything. Absolutely. So we all feel it. We all feel it. Now,
One thing I wanted to say, because I wanted to complete the impact. It's not only about business. I really hope, and I believe it should be the case, that after years of cost cutting of healthcare, I think that one category and one business which will improve after this crisis is healthcare. Hopefully, definitely private, but hopefully also state support. I think in the last year, all over the world, in my country as well, Italy, they overcut expenses on public healthcare. I not even want to mention United States, and then we can see the results. But I hope that underpaid nurses, underpaid doctors, and limited resources, I really hope that this will not see anymore, because it's true that this pandemic happens every several years, but we don't know actually. And I think after this, probably the industry of the sector of public and private healthcare should be reinforced. And I really wish, and I hope it's going to be the case, even at cost of higher taxes.
That's an astounding remark. I 1000% agree with everything you say. And you know what really stuns me? I just cannot wrap my head around it. When I hear all those stories and accounts about pandemics in the last century and the century before the last, what strikes me is that we haven't learned, and our methods of fighting the pandemic haven't changed. We as civilization cannot be compared with what we used to be in early 19th century, 20th century, what we are today. We have progressed so much on almost any aspect of our lives. Yet, and even in healthcare, actually, of course, we did amazing progress, but specifically in fighting pandemics, predicting pandemics, fighting pandemics and viruses, we're virtually on the same level as the end of the 19th century. We're doing just the same thing, quarantining ourselves, because there's effectively nothing we can do to stop it and prevent people from dying. This is, it is amazing, because if someone can come up with a framework for a system, sustainable framework, realistic framework that can really put us onto the next level of predicting, managing, and fighting pandemics in this world, which actually I think Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation has been trying to do for years now. But if much more resources, governments, organizations plug into this, I think there's going to be a real breakthrough. Because I was amazed. I don't know whether you've seen it. You check it out. There's a video on YouTube, a TEDx talk by Bill Gates in 2015, when he tells about that. And what really killed me was that even the picture of the virus molecule he shows exactly from the SARS corona family, is the coronavirus molecule that he shows. And he says, that's what's gonna hit us the most, not the stock market, not the geopolitical tug of war, not the nuclear Armageddon, but exactly this. And nobody has paid attention. So I think you hit the nail on the head, saying that something has to be finally done to address this issue.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to blame anyone, but it's also difficult when you are your day-to-day. Say, okay, Bill Gates, very smart guy, he says these things, but 100 years is not happening. I mean, I think even there are people which are saying that there are meteorites coming against the Earth. Until it doesn't happen, unfortunately, nobody does anything. But I hope that now the lesson is learned, and I hope that people will take it seriously going forward. That's the only comment I had the main comment I had to make on this.
Thank you, Giovanni. Now, literally $1 million question. Where one should invest after the crisis or amid the crisis, in your expert investor's opinion?
Right. Look, that's more than $1 million question.
It depends how much one has, right?
yeah. But I'm thinking about all the people investing and how much money is in financial markets, trillions of derivatives and everything. It's a big question. Look at, but first of all, what I'm saying is my personal view, is not the view of my own firm. Also because we don't provide, we do investment banking, but we are not, analyst or brokerage. So my personal view is that every state is now printing a lot of money, evidently, because all these programs are government supported. Government is us in the end, and you see a lot of dollars and euros being printed, either with monetary policy or also direct intervention in the society when it's supported by money of the government. So as a result of this, you have a situation where the monetary mass globally will increase dramatically. That means, for very simple reasons, that the assets are going to be worth more because you have more money which can buy more or less the same assets. Now, all the money will not be available to everyone, but it will be in the system. And I think that, I mean, the debt will not be particularly, debt will not be particularly profitable, about bonds and like this, because interest rates will have to remain low. Because with all the governments taking on this big indebtedness, they will have also to keep interest rate low to support the economy after a big recession and to keep their own debt payable. Because if interest rates will go up, countries which have a lot of debt will have big issues to pay their interest on the debt. So interest rates probably will remain low for quite some time. So interest rate low plus a lot of liquidity, the natural consequences is that the assets, being equity or real assets, are going to increase. The value. There will be an inflation of assets. This is what we have seen until February. Until February, the stock price was going up because cost of money was very low. Cost of debt was very low, and the assets were more or less the same. And I think this crisis is going to exacerbate this going forward as well. Not maybe immediately, because the economic consequences of the crisis, of the recession, will be felt also clearly on the financial markets. But once the economy will restart working at whatever pace, with all this monetary mass, assets and self will increase. So banally speaking, I think also real estate should increase, and any asset companies which generate cash and have the capacity of generating cash even in a crisis moment or in subdued economic conditions will be more valuable in terms of dollar. Sitting on cash is good now when everything going down, but at a certain point is not going to be particularly remunerative because interest rate will be very low. And one thing which is interesting is that people of what happened in the last years and going forward, people who think that they can live out of big capitals on their interest, probably they need to change their mind. They need to put their capital at play because interests are not going to maintain you anymore in quiet. I don't know if I answered your question.
No, you did. And actually, this is very interesting. You know what? The reality is that none of those assets that are cash generating and that are present in the world today going to suddenly disappear because of the crisis. They're still going to be there. There might be disruptions in cash flows for obvious reasons, but they are going to be there. And as you said, there will be more money in the world. So the biggest question is, again, who's going to get most of this money and best assets? So again, redistribution of resources and assets. And here I agree with you that this income gap and wealth gap will increase, unfortunately. But another important thing that you said, that cash generating assets with a well-established business model will continue to be lucrative. What we have seen so far on the stock market, at least, is exactly the opposite, and what I was surprised with. I was making one of such interviews in Insights for Kiev format with Arturo Briz, who is a professor of finance at IMD Business School in Switzerland. And he is a world-renowned financial specialist. And he noted that in this particular crisis, value stocks lost more value than growth stocks. Usually it happens. Usually the opposite happens. Usually growth stocks lose much more value faster than value stocks. and Teslas and Amazons of this world, okay, Amazon is a bad example in this particular situation, but Teslas and say Facebooks of this world actually lose more than Chevron or British American Tobacco. And in this situation, what we have witnessed over the last several weeks is exactly the opposite. And I actually see it in my portfolio too. The industrial companies that I have in my portfolio, they are losing, and well-established companies value faster than the growth stocks of fancy tech companies. It is, at least on the stock market, so far, investors still show more confidence and appetite for growth stocks for future cash flows than current cash flow. This is interesting. This is just my observation.
That's true. But this is also based on this general assumption that online is going to be more resilient to this crisis than other sectors. So it's not really because of growth, but the type of business that they do. Online, people are spending. What do you think? Facebook. How much are you watching Facebook now in these days more than you were doing when you were working regularly? I guess, right? And you watch more advertising, and probably you buy more things, and that's like. Yeah. But nevertheless, I think there was a sell-off which was rather indiscriminated and pretty broad. I think I'm not an investment advisor on stock. I'm not, and my company neither. But I'm here more and more, especially saying that now they are starting building up portfolios, but on a stock picking basis rather than the index, trying to pick up stocks which in the current and prospective scenario have more chance to weather the crisis in better conditions.
I see. Well, Giovanni, thank you. I think we've covered a broad topic of social, geopolitical, economic issues. I just want to get back to a more humane level, so to speak. How are you getting by in these times of crisis? You're stuck in Kiev, though it's a lovely city, and thank you for your positive feedback. It's my hometown, so I love it, even though I've spent significant time of my life outside Ukraine. But nevertheless, how are you getting by? How are you keeping on? Do you work a lot? Do you work out a lot, cook a lot? What is your routine that keeps you busy and upbeat?
I work quite a lot. I would say the first week of the crisis was a bit of a shock for everyone. Also, I found myself here unprepared in a way. I ran out of my socks, for instance, and I have to wear. I don't know where to buy. I have to wear. Sometimes I have meetings in suit, but I'm wearing some very short Nike socks because I got some hole. I got some hole in the serious one I was using for too long. But still, I think people are accepting that we cannot be perfect in these days. I cook, but the first week were a bit stressful. Now I would say that people are getting, myself at least, are getting more used to this new strange reality. And also business has picked up for us significantly in the last week because of restructuring. A lot of people are getting into trouble. Yeah, a lot of companies are getting into trouble. Oil price is down. I mean, in the region, people cannot pay debt, so they're starting preparing restructuring. Also in Ukraine, I'm sure you've read that some companies, as announced some defaults. So now I'm a bit more busy. I like to go for some shopping. What I found a bit interesting that before, when I was going to meet people, and I'm Italian, I'm very proud of being Italian, and every time people they like macaronis here, right? In general, and also in Russia, we are a nation that we are not belligerent. We try to be friendly. We have some, sometimes funny, and what I experimented, which was very telling for me, is that before I would say, when you say buongiorno, now it's kind of and if they find out that I'm from Bergamo, it's even worse, because Bergamo is a capital, of a disaster, frankly, in Europe, very sadly. So I saw the reverse of before being having a passport which was welcome. Now when I was showing the passport in the last few weeks, everywhere I was going, and when it was still possible to fly, I was put at the end of the line question. And so it was very interesting because I was thinking about all these people coming with Iraqi passport, Serbian passport, and whatever in the past. And I think it's a good lesson that you never know. Sometimes you can become stigmatized.
Yeah.
But so far in Kiev is okay. If I say buongiorno, it's still okay. Or arrivederci.
I love hearing buongiorno. You know what? Actually, believe it or not, my biggest personal pain of this pandemic, and I pray that it finishes as fast as possible, apart from people, of course, losing lives, which is always a personal tragedy and a global tragedy. I want to travel to Italy. I want to go to Italy this summer. I try to go to Italy as often as possible, and especially for summer vacations. I've been spending it literally for this last.
I'm looking for.
I don't know how many years. So I wanna go to Italy. So we must fight this pandemic, and I want Italians to be. I joined those mayors of Italian towns and being emotional. Stay home because I want Italy to be open for summer, because that would be for me a real big personal tragedy if I cannot go to Italy in summer.
One last point, if I may, and we should go to Italy together. You should come to see Bergamo, which is the most hit city in Europe and probably in the world. And it is my hometown where my parents are still living there, and they're in total lockdown. Some relatives of mine passed away recently as well. It's a disaster there, but it will be soon be over. We are also working with the mayor of Bergamo, which is a beautiful city, by the way, to raise some funds for to help a little bit the city. And I happen to have written a book, a fairy tale for children. I did it on spare time, and I will let you know, because they are going to promote it to collect funds for this city. So maybe you can spread it around in your network. You can buy it online, and all the proceeds will go to the city of Bergamo for the coronavirus support. I mean, it's $3 or something.
This is
like
beautiful.
that. I'll let you know.
Giovanni, this is beautiful. First of all, I hope your parents and relatives, those that have not passed away, stay safe and healthy. And my condolences for your losses in this global tragedy. And I'd love to go with you to Italy, because first of all, it's after Ukraine, that's my probably second most favorite place on earth to go to and be to by all means. And there's nothing like seeing this place with locals. When you have a local who can show you around, there's nothing like it. It's incomparable to being just a tourist on your own. So invitation accepted. Let's work and do our best to give any support we can in this situation. Hopefully it will resolve itself by summer, and we'll get back to our businesses and actually raising our world and our countries and our businesses from the ashes of this unexpected blow that we've all experienced. And thank you once again for your time, for your insight.
Thank you, Nicolas.
For both your professional and for your human feedback that you've provided. I'm sure everybody will appreciate that. Stay safe and healthy. Hope to see you in person whenever we can. And thank you very much for this great interview. I really enjoyed the talk. Actually, that's the reason why I'm doing this. I'm doing this not just because I don't have anything to do. Actually, I have more work than ever, but because I love talking to people, and especially to such distinguished personalities. And by the way, Kyiv International Economic Forum is on this year. It's going to happen in October, and we really hope that you'll be able to join again and be our distinguished guest and speaker.
Inshallah. Thank you very much, Nicolas.
Thank you. Thank you, Giovanni. All the best. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Nicolas. Bye-bye.